Hi everyone, it's Randall with Carter Hill Honeybees, and in today's video the time has come for me to get the brood nest down to the bottom. This is a colony that I've already stopped from swarming twice. It looks like they've abandoned their swarming instinct, but we'll find out here in a few minutes when I go through it and shake the bees down, and we'll try to determine if they swarm. But the nectar flow is pretty much starting now, and I got to get these colonies supered up, get my queen excluders on. Now this yard has been plagued with European foul brood, and I come down here, had 2 colonies that was queenless. I requeened 2 of them, so I just brought some of those nukes I had left home and combined with them. 24 had European foul brood. I can tell the work traffic is much better now, but we'll look for signs of a foul brood, European foul brood, when I go through it. But as you can tell, these colonies look much different. Even this one here that I did a video a couple weeks ago about reading the entrance, this colony is much improved with that queen and those bees that was already in there. But here I got my truck bed loaded full of supers, and I brought me a couple of extra empty supers. If I have any supers that need replacing, I'm going to do it today, as I'm going to have all the frames out of them. Got my excluders here ready to go on, got my handy bench to save some bending over, got all the equipment ready to go. I'm doing this about a month later than I did last year. I think I jumped the gun slightly. I have found over the years with my checkerboarding technique that between swarm cutoff date, which is about a week and a half into apple tree bloom, that between there and now, a lot of the colonies, especially the ones that's had a good buildup, they will supersede their queens. So I've delayed this some this year, and I'm hoping to avoid breaking some of those queen cells. The ones that supersede now or a little bit later, they'll have great queens for next year most likely. All right, let's get set up and get started, and I'll walk you through this process on a couple of colonies. All right, once again, this is the colony. I've done stopped it from swarming twice. I'll try to see today if it has swarmed since I stopped it. I don't think it has. Pretty good bit of bee population up top here. And the way I stopped it from swarming, I just simply come in here and pull a little brood out of it, tore out the queen cells. I had to do that twice, and then the second time I put 3 empty mediums on here, and I think that did the trick. So they're storing some honey up here, there's some brood up here, so the brood nest is, I don't know if it's all up in here, but there is some brood up in here on this top super. Just a little bit. This is mostly honey. A little bit of brood right there, but they're starting to close that down. So that's one of the things I'm wanting to correct. In the past, before I run queen excluders, my brood nest would wind up in here at harvest time. So now I want to force it back down, and that'll make this a lot easier at harvest time. So the first thing I'm going to do is set these 3 supers off to the side. So there's more brood up here right now. It looks like they're not. Looks like the queen's not relaying in these empty cells, so they may be preparing to start backfilling. And I see some evidence of nectar right there with some freshly emerged bees. Some queen cups right there, but they're dry. It also kind of looks like the brood nest kind of chimneyed its way up through here as well, because what I'm seeing, we got about 3.5 frames of brood right here, and then to the side over here we got mostly honey and pollen. So I've gotten down as far as I want to go. I got a deep and a medium, and I see brood down in here, so that's good. So what I'm going to do here is shake these bees frame by frame, and yes, that's going to take some effort and time, but that's going to be a whole lot quicker than looking for the frame, or looking for the queen frame by frame. I will glance for her on some frames, but I'm going to shake these out pretty quick. So I want to make sure all the bees get underneath the queen excluder, so I knock them off the inner cover. And now I've got me a empty deep up here. And I've got me an empty medium super. If you carry an extra medium super with you, you can just shake the frame, put it in here, and that'll save you some time and effort. lot of brood and fresh nectar up here. Now what'll happen is when I get this above the excluder, the bees will emerge and then they'll backfill this with nectar, and that's exactly what I want to see. The other thing I'm going to do is sort these frames out of honey, pollen, and brood. I'm going to get the brood in the lowest box I possibly can together. So there's one super sorter. And there's two boxes shook. They're sorted. I'm going to have a couple of frames of just a tiny bit of brood that I'm going to put here, immediately above that medium. But that's going to have them down as low as I can get them. Well, I can't 100% say one way or the other that this colony didn't swarm, but the amount of bees in there, I don't think they did swarm. If they did, it was only one time. There's definitely a lot of bees in there. They're close to getting these 3 supers full. Alright, so I've got all the frames shook off. Got a lot of bees in this box, so now I got to kind of shake those down. Okay, now the hard work for this is pretty much done. The queen should be underneath this queen excluder. So I'm going to come in and put the one with all the brood in it first. Then I'm going to go ahead and get a couple of empty mediums and put right here. This would be a good time to put a couple of foundations in, but due to my losses, I'm going to have plenty of drawn comb, so to maximize the honey crop potential, I'm just going to use my drawn out comb. And also this will be the last time of the season that I will do any type of bottom super. I will do it now because I've already got the heavy supers off, so it's just real easy to do. And this will make it easier on the bees to fill up. And they've probably got those 2 supers, and the one below is probably a little half full of honey. Those are probably roughly 2/3, so they should easily fill all this up by the time the nectar flows over. But I will come back by and check in a week or so. Actually, what I'll do today will probably last 2 weeks, and then I'll come by and simply lift the inner cover up, and if they're putting nectar in the very top one, then I'll know to go ahead and add another one. Once I run out of drawn combs, then I'll start putting a super foundation on top. Got those empty combs up here, and I want to do something this year I haven't done in a couple of years. That is to slide back like the 3rd medium or the 4th medium above the deep. I'm going to slide it back about 3/8 of an inch, which will mean the back will still be closed off, but the bees can utilize this rabbit where your frame rest is. And what I do, I just look down between the frames and slide it back. And when I see daylight, I slide it back up till it disappears, and that's it. And this leaves about 3/8 of an inch right here. And I feel like the bees, it really helps them to dry the honey. Now if the brood nest gets up in here, they'll start working this like an entrance. But as long as there's just honey and no brood up here, the bees will just primarily or mostly sit up here and fan just like they do at the entrance. So I've done this for several years. The rain is not an issue. If it does rain, it don't that much get in there, and the bees can deal with it. It's not caused me any trouble whatsoever. But I really like doing it. I'm going to go back to doing it this year. I didn't do it last year. I just wanted to try it. I don't know if this makes any difference in honey yield or not, but I do think it helps them dry the honey. Now here's a little tip. If you decide you want a 9 or 8 frame spacer, go ahead and get you splurge and get you the metal one. The plastic ones are not worth 15 cents. They're junk. But these right here, I've had this one. I mean, I've used this one for 15 years. And I bought 2 of these back then, and I've got the other one hanging up in case I lost this one, but I've never lost this one. These are pretty handy about getting your frames spaced right. As you can see, there's just a little bit of hint of white wax right there and right here. So this is ideal in my book, or in my opinion. Now if I'd have come in here and this is just laced with honey and white wax all the way across here most of the way, that tells me I'm too late. So I timed this just about right. But when you're late like this, you're leaving money on the table and you're losing honey production. So it's really important to get these colonies supered up in time. All right, that's got the first one, my strongest yard, which has 7 just like this right now. As you can see, that's going to take a while. The rest of this yard will be pretty easy. As you can see, I'll only have to shake down 1 super there, and all I have to do is add with that one and the one down yonder. And then those 2 yonder have a little bit of shaking, but this yard's going to go pretty quick from here on out. Okay, it looks like this super may be mostly full of honey. If that's the case, I need to move this super up. And that's entirely possible because there was no brood in here last week. Okay, we got some young larvae there. Yeah, that frame's got brood too. So I want to keep that brood below the excluder. So the rest of this is all honey. So I want to move this above the excluder. And I'm going to put an empty down here. That'll give the queen plenty of room and should take care of any possible issues of the bees wanting to swarm, as it will take her several days to lay that super up in combination with the emerging bees below in the deep. But first I'll get my empty medium and put on there. And now I'll put this brood back in here. So now I'll put the 3 empty drone outs I took out of that bottom medium. Just put them in the middle, they'll be most likely to fill it there. So now I'm ready to shake the rest of these bees down. Now if I was to glance and see the queen during this, all I got to do is catch her and put her down below the excluder, and the shaking is over. But considering how far these colonies are behind, they've made up a lot of ground this week. So I'm going to go ahead and bottom super. I'll go ahead and put 3. There's a lot of bees in there. I'll go ahead and put 3 mediums on here. Once again, the 3rd medium above the excluder. I'm going to slide this back until I see daylight between the frames. And slide it back and close it off. That'll give me my ventilation entrance here. I don't know if this is the right number, but I'm doing it that way, that high above the entrance down there, in case a virgin goes on a mating flight. Hopefully she'll use that entrance down there and not decide to come up here. That's one reason I closed it off last year. So this year, now that I'm using the excluder, I'll see if I get burnt with that. So hopefully I won't. So this is all a new trial, and like I said, I've been doing this right here for years with no issues. All right, that's it. There's 2 demonstrations. This one had 1 medium. The first one had 3 mediums on there, so this is 2 different ways to do it. But it don't matter how they're configured. If they've got any mediums at all, I'm going to get all the brood as low as I can. 1 excluder above the first medium. Get all the brood down as close to the excluder I can, or under it, and then have honey on top. If I come across one, which I don't have any left, but any that would be well, yeah, I do, I got 1 left. Any that's a deep only, all I gotta do is put my 1 empty medium, just like you saw in the nukes the other day. I put the 1 empty medium, then the excluder, and then I can put 1 or 2 mediums on top of that. This is the 2nd year I've used excluders, but with the rest of this management style is my form of Walt Wright's checkerboarding. It's worked pretty good for me. I've had pretty good results in honey production over the years anyway. So I'm trying to learn to make it even better and easier for me. But as you can see, this right here is a lot of time and work. But this will pay off in July when it's really hot. And I come around and harvest honey supers. I don't have to sort those frames in, because you're going to have to sort them either now or when you harvest. So I'd rather go ahead and sort them now when it's about 78 degrees versus when it's 90 or 95. It's a whole lot easier. All right, I've got it complete. All these colonies are ready for honey production. They all have their queen excluder. Most of them I added 3 mediums too. I think they won the next to the last one. I may have put 2, I'm not sure. What a dramatic difference. Bringing 4 nukes down here, requeening 2 and adding 2 to the queenless colonies. This yard looks totally different than it did 10 days ago. The last one down on the end, there's a lot of bees in there. And there's still a little bit of sign of European foul brood in one of the mediums, but there's so many bees in there that I believe they'll get that cleaned out within a week or so. Plus I moved it up about 3 supers from the hive. I feel like the bees will emerge up there, and the bees that have cleaned those cells out should be house bees, and hope they'll do away with the bacteria in there. I don't know, but I'm just going to try it and see. But I got a genetic change there, and so now this has went from the weakest yard to maybe the second strongest. So those nukes, a lot of those bees is hatched out, and there's a lot of bees in those 4 colonies that I requeened last week. And I do believe I was successful in keeping that from swarming. There's still a lot of bees in there. If it did swarm, I feel like it only swarmed 1 time, and I think it's going to produce a good honey crop. As you see, this is the first hive I worked when I got here. They've done pretty much calmed down, and the bees are fanning at the entrance. They're drying the nectar. The opening I just made up here, they're utilizing it as well. So right here is a great example of what you can do when you have utility bees or nukes. If I was not able to requeen those 4 colonies, I would have had almost 0 chance to get any honey off of those colonies. And only 2 of them would have produced, because only 2 of them of the 4 that I requeened had queens to start with. The other 2 had European foul brood. Now with those nukes I started last August that was pretty much packed out with brood and bees, I was able to come down here in just a few days, turn them colonies completely around, and now this yard is much more consistent and looks more like my strongest yard. So that's a very good reason to have nukes of bees and utility bees on standby just for situations like this. And that will probably salvage this yard's honey production. It's a really good yard. Well, I appreciate you for joining me for this video today. Never stop learning. We'll catch you on the next one.